to be Wesley Perkins, and we're going to be talking about a much needed Spurs victory. The Spurs, they won this. I can't believe that they won this game. It looked like all hope was lost. But God bless Bryn Forbes, man. Bryn Forbes was the savior of the game. He had a floater, then he hit a three, and lo and behold, the Spurs pulled away and they were able to win off a wild play to end the game. Derek White kind of got the ball and he just threw it across the court. The Spurs actually turned the ball over the last play of the game, but somehow, for some reason, it just, the Magic just couldn't capitalize on that, and the Spurs come away with a 1 point victory. So, Wesley, I mean, how are you feeling about the win, man? It's exciting.
It is exciting. I enjoy Spurs takeovers, Joe, when we get to come on and talk about wins. It's fun to talk about wins. No, it was needed. I mean, you and I were talking off air. If they lose this game tonight, this could be a backbreaker because at this point, let's be real. They have to win all of their home games if they're going to stay in contention or make a run at this eighth seed that they still have. They still have a chance to go at. They have to win their home games. And if you would lose against a team like the Magic, this is precisely the kind of thing that we've seen them, blow up before. We've seen it against the Hawks. We've seen it against the Cavs. We've seen it against, the Timberwolves. And to win tonight means a good deal. But tempering that enthusiasm, not to be Debbie Downer, but part of the problem, though, too, is when you really start looking at things, they flat out got lucky. They had a giant lead. They played Spurs basketball in a good way for a solid, 3/4 or 2.5 at least quarters in this game, and then come the fourth quarter, you just saw it coming. And Joe, kind of to that point, that's where my mindset is tonight. Is I'm rejoicing the win. I'm thankful and relieved to see them win. But to me, the concerns are still great going forward. Is that was there anything sustainable tonight that we saw? That gives us the hope that they're going to go on a big run and maybe have a chance to claw out of this hole. A win's a win. Nobody's going to apologize for it, but it still is a little perilous.
That it is, but the only thing I can say is, pretty much exactly what you said. At this juncture, the only thing that we can hope for is at least that these younger players are getting some run out there. Regardless if they win or lose, I just want to see them compete. They competed tonight. They got themselves back in the game. It was good to see, one Drew Eubanks out there doing his
Yep.
thing. He had 10 points, he played 17 minutes. He had 10 points. He had 3 rebounds, so it was nice seeing the young man get some run out there on the court. And also, Spurs fan favorite, Lonnie Walker, he was out there in very limited minutes tonight. He played 11 minutes. He had 0 points. And then you had
Mm.
Marco the Diaper Beninelli, who I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I don't like to see him
Oh,
on the court, period. He was out there for a whole 5 minutes. He dropped in 2 points, so at least you have that. But Derek White, decent game from the bench, 25 minutes, 11 points. Patty Mills again, solid performance from the bench, 21 minutes, 8 points. Rudy Gay, 30 minutes. The old man actually had 19 points, which
big
is
time,
good. He
big
came
time.
up big time tonight. He looked like he kind of
Yes.
dialed that clock back a little bit, and we saw the Rudy Gay of old, of last season, where he was able to knock down some shots. And again, Drew Eubanks as well contributed, as I stated, 10 points for the night. Then let's go ahead and go and look at the starting five. You had DeMar DeRozan, who played 33 minutes, had 16 points. Jakob Portal only played 4 minutes, and hopefully that knee contusion that he had isn't as bad as it looked
Yeah.
like.
It
Hopefully he
looked
can.
bad.
Hopefully he can come back pretty soon because we sure could use him. So prayers go out to to Jakob, man, for a speedy recovery. Trey Lyles, he played 40 minutes, dude. He was balling. He had 20 points on the night. And you
Yeah.
had DeJounte Murray played 30 minutes. He had 15. And Bryn Forbes, 24 minutes. He was the savior of the game in that fourth quarter. 13 points, So
Yep.
not bad.
Barbecue, Joe.
Barbecue.
Barbecue.
Barbecue
Get him
came
some
up for us.
barbecue. That's right.
Yeah, you need to get him some good barbecue sauce because he came up big with some clutch shots tonight. So it was good. Everything was copacetic tonight in Spurs Nation. The Spurs, however they were able to get the win at the end of the game, they certainly found a way. Maybe it was my lucky Spurs candles that I lit. I had to prende la
Yep.
velas, like they say in Spanish. So get the Spurs all the good luck they could get. And I even sent a text to our friend Chris Duell, and I was telling him, during the game in the fourth quarter, I was like, Chris, if this team doesn't find a way to win this game, this is going to be a backbreaker for him. And he texted me
Hmm.
right after they won, and he's like, "Thank God they found a way to win." I was like, I was all for
Yeah.
it, man. I was lighting my candles, trying to give them as much good vibes as I could. I'm ecstatic that they were able to win, because hopefully this will be the turning point to get them a couple wins under their belt, because they have some games coming up. The next one's against the Pacers, and we kind of said, in that last outing, in the last podcast I had, and I was talking with Jeff Garcia of News 4, and I told him, I said, even though the Spurs lost their last game, if they can end, right before they go into that road, before they hit the road, if they can end it on a sweet spot, and get a much needed win and keep the momentum going, they can realistically get themselves back in the playoff race again. And it's not over mathematically; they're still
Mm.
around, but it's not looking good. And if the other teams in front of us keep losing and the Spurs keep winning and go on like a 5 or 6 game win streak, they can make things very interesting, Wesley. So,
Yeah.
what's your take?
Well, the tonight was one of those nights. We had hoped with the Lakers going into Memphis, you could see the Lakers, demolish the Grizzlies, but it was the other way around. I mean, the Grizzlies just absolutely demoralized the Lakers tonight. And so you're going to have nights like that, and it's important sometimes just to keep pace, because they don't have the formula right now where they have. It's not in their hands. They don't control their own destiny, and so it's important at this point that they just stack up wins. And they've been saying this much. DeRozan's been talking about in the media how much it sucks to lose. And Joe, to be honest with you, and this is something we're kind of talking about off air, the one thing that I think Spurs fans really have to appreciate about this team, listen, we all want this team to win on a consistent basis. And yes, I think tonight is a great kind of moment where maybe that will spark some of the play going forward to say, hey, look, we just got to be urgent. It's got to be a playoff game every night. But one of the things that we talked about off air is just kind of the idea that this team, you know, between the ears, and just has some of the things that they expect things to go wrong, but they play hard every night. They're not giving in. They want to win. They want to make the playoffs. That says a bunch about the character of these guys. And I think Spurs fans, sometimes we get in these thought processes where we think that this team is
Or
underachieving
they're
and this and
giving
that.
up, or they giving
They're
up.
giving up, yeah. And it also goes back to the same thing. We've heard this over and over and over. This argument of this is the same team as last year. They almost beat the Nuggets last year in the playoffs. It's not the same team, because listen, Joe, you and I both know this as well, right? We have different jobs outside of what we do here, talking sports and Spurs. And the thing about it is that how many times have we had a year or a month or a time where we did the same job and we should have had it done just as well, but we had a bad patch. We didn't do it as well. I mean, you can say it all day long, but they're human. They're gonna play well, and they're gonna overachieve, and we're gonna laud them for it. And then there's gonna be times like we've seen this year where it just hasn't gone their way. And the best mark of a team, though, is that the team shows up to work every single day with a good attitude and for each other. And you can't fault this team for that. And I know that it's frustrating sometimes. People have valid feelings about what this team is or isn't at this point. But you know what? Rejoice the wins. Take pleasure in the fact that you have a team that cares and wants to still do this, and sees. Yeah, they understand what the score is on where the standings are, and they're going to take it one game at a time because they have the greatest coach of all time at the helm. So my thoughts on that, Joe, really honestly is I want to see them just continue to play hard, and no matter what the outcome is, put something out there that they would be proud of, that we'll be proud of, and at the end of the day, if they come up short, then they came up battling, and that's all we can ever ask.
Yeah, that's all we can ever ask. But it was good to see the expression, the exuberation, the happiness on the players' faces after the game,
Yes.
because losing is debilitating. It brings morale down. And I'll be honest, what I've seen in the faces of the players is just frustration. They're frustrated because they're in some of these games, down the stretch. They just can't get the stops. They just can't get the buckets they need to get themselves over the hump. And it is frustrating. It is debilitating. Winning makes everything better. And we
It
saw that
does.
tonight. The team was ecstatic. There were a lot of smiles on there. Coach Pop gave kind of a little smirk, that kind of summed up the game at the end. Like, we kind of won, we survived, he'll take it. A win's a win. So, I like to see that moving forward. Let's see them have some fun with it. I think that's one of the things that had been lacking as of late is that kind
Yes.
of the fun has been taken out of the game because they are in dire straits. They're fighting for their playoff lives and they're competing at a high level. Just they just can't find the ways to win consistently or play consistently,
And
and
Joe,
that's on them.
I want to throw this out there because this
Yeah.
goes to your point. You know, when this team early on in the season went on an 8-game losing streak, that's the likes of what we've
Oh
never
yeah.
seen for this team ever. And that just demoralized them. And even I think it still has lingering effects. I think that still that doubt has crept in their mind. And you were on the money, sir. You are absolutely right. They need to get back to where it's fun. I mean, I hate to say it, but when you're stressed out and you try to do your job, you're always going to feel like the pressure's on. And it's not until you finally start to realize what it's for and why you're doing it to begin with and get back to just the basics of it. And that you're right, Joe. What a great point to see them smiling, to see them, feeling that camaraderie that sometimes we don't see. And yeah, you're right. If they can just get back on a winning way, but more importantly, if they can just get back to a point where come win, lose, or draw, they're enjoying the game again. I think you're right. That's going to mean a whole bunch.
Yeah, I think so. So hopefully they can use this momentum moving forward and get some much needed wins. I think the next game they have is going to be against the Pacers. And let's see who they're playing after that. I just had it up and I lost it for a second. Here we go. They're going to play the Pacers next. And then after that, they play the Hornets. They play the Nets. They play the Cavaliers. So realistically, this team could go on a one. They won one game. They could go on one, two, three, four, a 5-game win streak. If they can put
Yep.
all these teams to rest, and play consistent basketball, and especially during that fourth quarter, because let's face it, the Spurs look good in the first half of most games. It's that third quarter that kind of gets away for them. Then they find a way to get back in the fourth, but unfortunately they can't get those stops on the defensive end, or they get stops, they just can't knock down shots. So again, I think this win will help them maybe use the momentum to keep moving forward, go on this win streak, hopefully, before they face the Mavericks and the Denver Nuggets, which will be the Mavericks. They face them on March the 10th, and the Nuggets they face on the 13th. So those are two tough games. I'm not saying that they're not going to be able to win those by any means. It's just hard, because we saw what happened to them against the Mavericks.
It's just not a good
The
matchup
last
for
game,
them.
yeah, not a
It's just
good
not a
matchup.
good matchup for them.
And they were without, I believe at that time they were without LMA. He was out again due to his sore right shoulder. But now we're out without Jakob Portal. So hopefully he's on the mend and he can get back in the
So,
lineup.
Joe, let me ask you then, okay? Because this is what I was going to point out too.
Sure.
Is okay. So LMA's hurt, right? Pirtle probably going to miss at least a game or two, and DeRozan does not look right. Let's be honest.
He looks tired,
Whether
man. I'm going to be
he
honest, dude. I
does.
think those heavy minutes he's played all season are starting to catch up with him.
Yeah. So how much, and this is a factor for every team, it's not just the Spurs, how much is now that heavy involved minutes, the time that we've seen LMA and DeRozan play? Because normally Pop would have done rest management, but he couldn't afford to do it this year.
Yeah.
So how much is that going to play into this final push? I mean, what is your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think it's going to have a lot to play. I think they're still going to have to find ways to win, but also find ways to get him some rest, and that might be
Yeah.
having to play some of the youth. Some of the young guns out there, some of these young bucks. Give them the nod, give them the start, and get them some run out there and see what they can do. Win or lose, like I said, the only thing I want to see is I want to see them compete at a high level. Be there in the end. Give yourself a chance to win games. Don't go out there and just lay an egg and give up and get blown out by 30 points or 20
Right.
plus points when you have most of your starters out there that can produce at a high level. Like they'll produce at a high level the game prior, and then the second, on a back to back, they just can't seem to get it together. They start getting blown out by lesser teams, or they just blow the lead. They're up by 20 and they blow the lead in that fourth quarter, and again, it's debilitating. It's humiliating. It just sucks the life, the energy, and the fun out of the game itself. And I don't want to see that happen to this team. I think with that injection of youth and seeing the likes of a Drew Eubanks or a Shizemi Metu, a Lucas Amanic, a Keldon Johnson out there, seeing more of DeJounte, more of Derek, all these things are exciting. Even Jakob Portal, they're exciting to Spurs fans because they're clamoring to see more of these guys play together. And even if they lose, the fans will just be happy to see these guys playing out there and see what they're capable of,
Well, and to some extent, it gives them a better chance to win. And I'm not one of those that says you need to bench DeRozan or bench LMA.
No.
I mean, those are your stars.
Maybe
they
load
need to play.
management, give them a rest, from night to night. Yeah.
Because look, let's be honest. When the game speeds up, this team, that's where the NBA is right now. I mean, so those younger guys are going to give you a chance to play, and I mean, it's fun to watch DJ when he's in the open court and he's got
with
some
the right
options.
personnel,
with the right personnel.
Yeah,
that's right. And even him tonight, I know this first half a couple of times. He takes a couple of just side steps, takes a step back, and has a really pure jumper. It looks so good. And I just look
like
at that
the ball
and say,
went through the rim first, and then you heard the swish, and you saw the net move. That was pure.
Yeah, and that's the kind of stuff that when you start looking at these young guns, they just need that time. They need that time to gel, and that may also suit whether it helps them win, get in the playoff race or not. It's going to help this team down the stretch. So those minutes for those young guys, yeah, you're right, invaluable, and hopefully we see more aggression, especially later in games with those guys.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw in tonight's game is the team actually was setting 2 screens at a time, sometimes 3 screens at a time, to get the open man. Another thing I saw was they were using that spacing to their advantage, because they would have somebody like, let's say, a DeJounte Murray or a DeMar DeRozan or even Bryn Forbes at times go in, suck the defense in, and the Spurs had that correct spacing out there on the perimeter where they would get the ball, they would pass it around the horn. It would great ball movement at times, and I think on 2 occasions there I saw them pass the ball and find the open man to knock down a triple, and I believe 2 of those times it was Patty Mills for that corner 3. So I loved that, because you have to play to your strengths, and I think they're starting to realize that ball movement is critical, and floor spacing, the correct floor spacing, is critical for them to be able to knock down these 3-pointers in the complexion of a game. Because I think at times they'll be their own worst enemy because they kind of bunch up on one side of the floor, or the spacing isn't there because they're too bunched up. They need to spread out, and they need to have the correct shooters out there on the perimeter. So I like the aggression out of a Bryn Forbes, going in there and making the defense respect him and suck that defense in, and being keen enough to go ahead and get that ball out without it being a turnover to the correct person in the waiting. So I like that. It was smart basketball.
Well, and Trey Lyles, let's be honest. Trey Lyles he was a top 10 pick. He was somebody who was thought of well enough to say that could be a franchise type player.
Yeah.
And he's everywhere he's been, he's kind of been just like, well, he's an underachiever. He doesn't do this. He doesn't work hard enough, blah, blah, blah. You saw him tonight in the fourth quarter, Joe, the guts of the game, drive the ball with a purpose. You saw him hang in the air, twist, and make an impossible layup and get fouled.
Oh,
that
the and one. He had the impossible and one. Yeah.
That to me states right there the maturity and the growth of a player like that. And we've seen him of recent days. His 3-point shots coming around. He's way more comfortable driving the ball to the basket than he was early in the year. He was very timid. He was very unsure of what to do and whether or not he should or shouldn't do. And so that's the kind of stuff we're talking about. When these younger players are starting to get out of their own way, and now they're not only thinking for themselves, but they're thinking for their teammates. I think it is exciting to see that. I mean, that to me, more than anything else, is what I'm looking at for the rest of this season. Make the playoffs, that would be great. That would be bonus. That would be gravy.
It would be a miracle if they make the playoffs. If they make the playoffs, it would be a miracle.
It would. But, Joe, I'm looking at it from a standpoint, the season's not lost. This is a chance
It's
for
not.
these young cats to start to develop so that when we get, some of these G League guys coming in from, Keldon and from Samanic and from, Metu, what do we really have? And if these young core guys really get that opportunity to grow now and invaluable experience in the ends of games, man, you're going to talk about a quicker development and a better development for everybody.
Yeah, and just to go ahead and give the latest Western Conference standings, the Spurs were one time at what, the 12th spot in the West.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Given that they were off the other night and the other teams lost, Spurs are in the 10th spot right now, and they can catch ground on both the Grizzlies and on the Pelicans. If they can string together some wins, and either the Grizzlies or the Pelicans do us a solid and start dropping some games. This is in striking distance of the Spurs. They are in charge of their own destiny right now. And that's something that you want. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that they're capable of getting that eighth spot. Because they're well coached, and their schedule, yes, while at times they are going to be playing some of these tougher teams in the West, they've proven that they're quite capable of getting those wins, especially against the Utah Jazz, which I believe they're still going to play two more times. You
Twice,
know,
yeah.
so they can still get some ground there. They might have some trouble, I think, against the Dallas Mavericks, but against the Nuggets, I kind of like their chances. They played the Nuggets tough, and I think that they can get a win. Against the Nuggets, they
Yeah.
might, or who knows? Maybe they can go on a win streak there, and they wind up going on a tear, and they wind up beating the Mavericks and the Nuggets, and that could possibly be a 6-game swing, which would put them, I believe, right at that eighth spot. And that would put the Grizzlies at that point in time, if they drop a game or two or three, probably at 1.5 or 2 games behind the Spurs. So
Right.
anything can happen. But it all begins with the win, and they got the win they needed tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch it to you, Wesley, in closing, your final thoughts on this game and what this win means moving forward.
Well, it's a step in the right direction. And every time that they can win a game, I think it eases pressure in their own minds. Pop always says the right things. He's always coached this team, whether they were winning championships or, getting knocked out in the first round of the playoffs, or now when they're having struggles throughout this year. He always talks about not overlooking the next game, not looking forward to, trying to see where the standings might lie if we do this, this, and this. It's always that idea of the Mason, right? That strike, that first strike isn't the one that makes the stone crack. It's always the thousandth strike that does, and you just got to keep at it. So yeah, I think this was a positive step. I think that at this point, this team, feels their backs against the wall. But as you've been saying, Joe, I think that they need to just continue to have the passion and the love for the game, and continue just to work their best. And Spurs fans, listen, it's valid to be disappointed that we're not seeing a team be better this year that we expected better from. But don't give up on this team. This is a team that works hard. They're blue collar, just like us, and as a family in this city. And I respect them a whole bunch. And brighter days are still ahead.
Yeah, I believe brighter days are still ahead. We just got to keep the faith. And, again, the Spurs are in charge of their own destiny. So if
Yep.
you all got any little knickknacks, any little candles, or, things that bring good luck, you might want to bust those out, because this is a critical trip for the San Antonio Spurs right now.
And hey, I'm just going to say one of my favorite players that most people don't care much about, Alan Crabb, was released today. Just saying, length, 3-point shooting, veteran player. Just saying.
Nah, I don't want him to sign anybody. I'd rather have them give those minutes to some of the
To the
younger
young
guys.
guys.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let them ball out, man. Put more Drew Eubanks in there. He was an energy player. You could tell he was excited to play. So that was good to see. I think the young man earned some minutes tonight, especially
Hmm.
what he's been able to do over there in the G League. He's kind of showing that he can contribute. And I like to see a little bit more of that moving forward. So you have that. But before we go ahead and end the show, where can they reach you on social media?
Wesley Perkins on Facebook, at Wesley Perk, Twitter, mostly my sports stuff on Twitter. But, fun times, but also dark times. Joe, man, NCAA basketball, my Red Raiders just might end up going from being the runner-up in the national title hunt last year to they've lost a few in a row. They may not even make the tournament. I'm starting to get worried about them. But hey, save the day. Red Raider baseball tonight came back in Tallahassee, number 2 in the nation, beat Florida State on the road tonight. Shout out Red Raider baseball. Great job. Yeah. Hook up. Let's talk some sports on my Twitter.
Yeah, and we do have March coming, so you know what that means. March Madness is almost here.
You bet.
So we got to start getting the brackets ready, Wesley.
That, and dude, we've got to do something for the draft too. The NFL draft comes up in April, and there's some really big storylines coming up with that too. So
yeah, I saw some of the players out there doing their thing at the combine. You know, I'm sure everybody did, keeping an eye on certain players and seeing where they're going to fall in the NFL draft. So that was interesting. Some of these guys, man, I got to tell you, man, these big guys can move, man, and they got some good hands.
It's pretty crazy. I can't even imagine being like 265 pounds and running like a 4.5. I mean, I think I run like a 6.0 and I'm like 200 pounds, but I'm 40 something. So that, yeah.
yeah. The heart's willing, but the engine ain't working.
Great way to put it, Joe. There you go.
All right. And they can also follow me at Two Shots Podcast, and you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, where you can watch the replay of the Spurs takeover and some of the other podcasts that we're doing for Two Shots as well. We had some great guests on our last show, so make sure you check that out on YouTube. And again, that you can follow us at Two Shots Podcast. It's all spelled out, TWOSHOTS Podcast. And you can also check us out at twoshotspodcast.com. So for Wesley Perkins, I'm Joe Garcia. Thank you guys for watching another episode of the Spurs Takeover. And also make sure you go and check out our good friends over at ProjectSpurs.com and the Project Spurs Network. So that's about all the time we have for tonight. So without further ado, let's go ahead and call it a night. And stay nice out there and keep things moving along, Spurs Nation, because you got to keep the faith, man. This team can still win. They can still keep on winning, and they still have a chance to make that 8th spot, man. So we got to keep the faith. So spread the love, stop the hate, and be kind. We're out. Peace.